What?
Can we tell?
Watch these, can we tell if we have any audience?
I don't,
These
there's
are-
not an audience. They
No,
can-
when you look at the YouTube, you
Yeah,
can see how
after
many
they
views there
watched
are.
it.
That's, so do we have any idea how many people are paying attention to what we're doing? Do we look?
I haven't.
Are we recording right now?
Yep,
But it's
Alright.
not live.
huh?
I just said, but it's not live.
Probably
Oh,
not. So, well, in that case, I move we adjourn.
Second.
You win.
Alright, I'll call the June 11, 2025 meeting of the Kickapoo Area School Board to order. And we'll begin with roll call, please, Marla.
Earl Wallace,
Here.
Isaac Wallace,
Here.
Bo Schrader,
Here.
Janet Mathis,
Here.
Scott Walter.
Here. Affirmation and proof of publication of the agenda.
I, Kimberly Johnson, hereby certify that notice of the Kickapoo Area Schools regular school board meeting was caused to be published in the Epitaph News on 6/5/25 and posted on billboards in the following places on 6/6/25. The Kickapoo K-12 school building, Citizens First Bank of Viola, Viola Post Office, and our school website.
Thank you, Kim. I'll next entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I will so move.
I'll second.
Motion by Earl, second
Can I ask a
by
question
Bo.
though before we do?
You can now.
Oh, no, never mind. Agenda's fine. I was unstuck.
Then, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? We have an approved agenda. Does Janet now have a comment, or you wanna move on? We're good? Okay.
For another couple of steps.
Item
yeah.
4 then, audience visitors and board members, and we do have
Yes.
a visitor tonight.
Okay, so again, I'm with the Viola Public Library, and this is a little free library that the director won at a library conference and has been sitting in the library for almost 3 years. Tired of looking at it, okay? But it's a really nice one. It's that poly plastic one. It comes complete with post and a way to mount it and all the hardware. So all you have to do is dig the hole. And I don't know when I was talking, I guess when you guys were talking about the scoreboard for the softball field or something. And I was thinking back to my childhood that if I were a child that had to go to someone's ball game, no offense, and I had to sit and watch a sport, might be happier if I had a book. So I didn't know if you guys would take this as a donation to put it somewhere kind of off, like on near the sports field, or put it somewhere away. So when people are out there, if they want to look at a book or something. Again, this is just, I'm just offering it. I will haul it away, but I'm hoping you'll take it. That's why I post. But, so I don't know. I just thought I would offer, again, the library is just offering this stuff. We're not going to come stock the library, but going to the books for breakfast, there seems to be a lot of books.
We got bucks floating around.
And I just thought that'd be kind of fun to have that out there by a ball field. Just, I mean, I don't know, just whatever. So I don't know if you can vote on this, or should I take it away? You're gonna call me, or what I should do?
I think, at first blush, I think that's a great idea. I love those little, what do they call them, free public?
Little free and this is actually one, it actually is an official little free library. It has a little tag on it and everything. This is a really nice one.
Composite and everything.
It's plastic. It's a really, and we couldn't really figure out where to put it, because we're like, oh, I could put it at Go Mag, and we just never could decide where to put it. And the library does already have one on Main Street. And I work at the library, so you can come to the big library. But yeah, and it's a pretty one too. It's not your school colors, but it's pretty.
Somewhere where it's easily accessible and parents know it's there.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't know, because you were talking like that field that was kind of far away. I don't know. I would like to have a library there. So anyway, so can I leave it here?
I would.
Thank you.
Anybody have any concerns?
Just walk away.
Now I should come back and check. But no, that would make me ever so happy if you guys, if somebody would use this, so.
I think
Yep.
you could put that to good use, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And then the thing is,
Fantastic.
I'm gonna put this inside, because this is the little thing, anyway, whoever puts it up will understand. And when I looked at it, even has the screws and everything.
Thanks for bringing it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
See,
you.
everybody's happy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, great. It was so nice to hear you say that. Okay, bye, guys.
Bye.
See ya.
Have a good night.
Don't be very far with the car keys. There it is.
All right, any board member thoughts,
Thank you.
issues, concerns?
Oh, actually, at the Mathis wedding, I had somebody stop me to just say how wonderful they think Kickapoo is and the track kids and everything else that's going on. So it's nice to actually hear nice things for a change. So I was gonna say that, I almost.
Very good, thanks, Andy. I guess Andy mentioned track, the girls and boys teams both did very well, season long, but
Yep.
conference champs, both regional champs, I think,
Girls were. but-
girls were, boys missed by it.
Yeah.
And then some good performances at state, so kudos there.
Some school records.
Yeah,
The
State
state
record.
record, yeah.
yeah.
Excellent.
Anything else? Then we will move on to expense vouchers and receipts. Questions?
I had a question in the checks, the Western Technical College, the GED contracts for $3,800. How many kids were involved in that? Do you know? Or-
We had 2 kiddos going through that this year, right?
So this is a whole
Yes.
class that go through that GED prep thing and then culminates with their test. Do we know if they pass their GEDs or? we don't get-
I don't.
They did.
Good.
They both got it. Yep. Which was good.
Yes.
The only thing that I was just curious about, we have under the check reports, checks to multiple life insurance companies. How are those separated? There's Madison National Life and American Heritage.
So, Madison National Life is like our, it's our true life and disability insurance. American Heritage is our Allstate plan, so that's more of like, an accident insurance or a cancer insurance, critical
Catastrophic.
illness insurance.
Okay,
And those are policy holder, those are what the school actually pays for, or are those things the teachers choose that are
A combination.
their they pick and then they pay, so we're getting it out of, we get the premiums out of there.
So the American Heritage Life Insurance, that is all 100% premiums that teachers, staff members pay. With the Madison National Life, the school pays for some, but not all, like a life insurance policy and a long-term disability insurance policy, but then there's also supplemental life insurance for.
Which they
employee-
choose and then they pay
Yes.
that part of the premium.
Correct.
Got it. I have one other question. It's not exactly about the check itself. It's just I don't ever remember seeing this. If I can find it, it's on page 4. It was in the, they're paying for the food, it was Performance Food Services. Food purchase 4. There are 2 of them and they're staff member names. Do we do that? I mean, is that kind of a policy? Or was it for personal use or is it for clubs or, you know, or an activity classroom use or?
Most of the time it's for clubs. There have been a couple times where like they can order, like for a graduation party, order bulk food for that.
But then we should be seeing reimbursement for that.
Yep,
And there's nothing here for that, so.
so those all get lumped together. We don't pay the bill until we get the
No,
check.
but we should be getting the check from the person
Correct.
and that should be showing up.
So that is included in the cash receipts. It's not
You're
one
right, that's what
singular
I'm saying,
line
they're
item.
not in the receipts.
They
In
went-
the, in the receipts, it should show up as a line item. Everything else does when somebody pays for a lost book and. you
It
know.
might not have their exact name on it. It might just say
But there's-
reimbursement for it.
I don't know, I find it, I don't know, if we don't have any policy against that kind of thing, I don't know, I think so. I just wondered, because I've never seen that before. but-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I did, the deposit went through this week,
Okay,
so it was
so,
after, yeah.
thank you. Okay.
So, just so I'm clear, so somebody has a graduation party, a staff member, has a party for whatever national honor
They can get their
society.
food ordered through our food service. I don't know, I don't know,
But why would they reimburse that if it's a school
because it's for their
related?
personal.
Oh, okay.
Personal use, yes, if
Okay.
it's for
Yep,
club,
yep,
then it
yep.
would come out of their club.
Yep, okay.
Oh, I guess I had one in P cards too. Lori Kaufman, it was Wilderness.
That
That would have
was,
been the senior trip.
yeah, that was the remaining payment on it. I think we saw the
Oh, okay.
initial a
That
couple
was
months
senior
ago.
trip.
Yep,
So that comes out of their senior class
Yeah.
thing.
yep.
I assume a lot of these food things and stuff like that, that go on advisors, P cards are that way, where they actually end up coming out of their activity account, but we don't really know that.
Yep, so a vast majority of any foods are typically for like concession stands, which comes out of their club account.
No, I'm talking about like restaurants and things like that.
Oh, restaurants, yes, those are all club funds and.
So this is the point where I look around and I don't know if anybody's gleaning new information or just turning pages to look busy. Ready to.
Yeah.
So I'll entertain a motion then to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the expense voucher receipts.
I'll second.
Motion by Earl, second by Isaac to approve this month's expense vouchers and receipts. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Moving onward then, tonight's consent agenda includes a number of items, the minutes from the May regular board meeting. Board permission to seek bids for snow plowing, snow removal, bread, milk and meat for the coming school year. 25-26 WIAA membership, which you see in your packet. And the best thing we approve every month, a donation, lumber for the baseball concession stand deck from Ross Carpenter. Many thanks there. A couple trips being planned, summer high school boys basketball trip. Looks like next, what would that be, Monday and Tuesday? Basketball tournament in Wisconsin Dells, and then a music trip to Pennsylvania, DC and New York next spring. The one comment I'd make is, I don't know who puts the summaries of the music, band and choir trips together, but they are comprehensive. If that's Greg or Greg and Catherine, I really appreciate
Yes,
that
that's a
detail.
good job.
Because when I first saw $1,500, I'm always worried that's gonna be exclusionary, that, you know. some
Read our
families-
minds, I think, because
You
they
know.
did some of it.
But then he said, you know, previous fundraising, the average that students have in the bank already is
Yeah.
nearly $800, so they work hard to make that affordable. So anyway, kudos to, I guess Greg and Catherine put a lot of time into that.
Can I ask a question on the basketball trip too? We did not have a lot of detail on that one. We had about 4 lines. And the cost was obviously nothing like the trip, but is that another one that gets paid for out of their
Club.
club?
Yeah.
And do we provide transit? I don't know how many kids are going, so do they transport themselves?
I think he was planning to take a,
Yeah, like a Yukon or something,
like
Sunday
just a
kids.
school van,
So the school is providing.
for the school van, yeah. But I think that was it. I don't think there's anything
And
else.
is it summer basketball this year? I know I was at the bus fund end of the year party and Jeff said he had just that day gotten a request for. I thought he said bus, but maybe he just meant transport vehicle or something for it. So are we now transporting kids to their summer league sorts of games and things too? And is that being paid for out of their activity accounts then, or am I off on what that was?
I guess I mean, this was the same one they did last year.
This is what he said, this is the first year he's had it.
Oh, I guess I thought they did it last year.
You might have done the tournament, maybe this is the first time they had.
Maybe that's the first time they trip, but no, they play in the league like every week, so they go themselves, so. You know,
Okay.
that one, I think being that it's over a weekend type thing. I think that was probably the thing, but yeah, we could certainly follow
That
up
might
on
have been
that
the first then.
and see on that.
He didn't have the per student cost, but it seemed,
Well, yeah,
It's like
two numbers,
500.
but one was $300 and some dollars. It's not like it's a hotel room, but how many kids are going? You're not gonna stay in the Dells for
yeah,
a night for
It seemed-
$300.
it seemed pretty reasonable. You add that up and
It did, right.
divide by 8 or whatever, it's,
Just a game cuts you a deal on the room.
what's that?
Just a game has agreements with the hotels. If you come play in their tournament, they get you.
Probably less than $100 a student. Plus $200 of food.
I was gonna say, plus the food.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or comments on the consent agenda? I will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Isaac, Marla, second by Bo to approve tonight's consent agenda. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Fairly brief action agenda tonight. First item being the 25-26 employee handbook. The
That was-
document was
Yeah,
shared.
it was like 118 pages, so I sent that to Google Docs to
That
everybody,
came a while ago, though, right?
last week,
Oh,
I think, yeah.
So tell me, was there any major changes?
No, just, I updated the policies, a lot of the policies were old. And then, so the only two things I'm waiting on is the teacher salary scale and the extracurricular pay scale. Everything
Oh,
else has
so
been
that we
updated,
approved
yeah,
that tonight, then.
Yeah. but there was, I don't think there was anything major. Just, some verbiage, but, you know, punctuation or whatever.
Okay. There weren't any changes to it that the board actually had to deal with, right?
No.
Okay. But,
But as an action agenda item, we need to take action, so I'll entertain the motion to approve.
I can make that motion.
No, second.
Motion by Janet, second by Earl to approve the employee handbook for the coming school year. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next item, and Marla has nicely provided a
Can't afford it.
calendar for us, but we've gotta establish our annual meeting date.
Usually go like last Wednesday, fourth Wednesday, one of the.
Typically, it's the last Wednesday in October, just because we don't actually get a lot of our final numbers until October 15th.
Okay.
So going then just gives us enough time to update anything that needs to be updated and get it to the paper in time for it to be published
Okay.
in the requirements that it needs to be. This year, that's looking like October 29th.
Sounds good. Doesn't do any good to try to do it earlier.
Everything put together.
Yep.
I'll make a motion that we have our annual meeting on October 29th.
I'll second.
Motion by Earl, second by Isaac to approve October 29th as our annual meeting date this year. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
7 p.m.
That's typically when it's been, I think.
And then the last thing on our action agenda, and I'll point out at 7:19 p.m. The second reading of policy 5411, third grade promotion and retention at risk, and we did review this, of course, previously.
We approve the third grade reading policy.
I'll second.
Motion by Janet, second by Isaac. To approve, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Moving then to our informational agenda at not even 7:20.
Okay.
We're gonna do-
Oh, we've got our officers as elected in May. Committee board assignments, and Marla put in the packet the current committee membership. if everybody's okay, it would be very easy to pass a motion and say, well, we don't need a motion, but
It's your appointment.
to, by consent, accept this for the coming year. Unless somebody would like to, has a burning desire to get on that busy ad hoc committee.
No, I think that's a good idea. They were kind of rearranged this past year and continuity kind of helps in some of these committees.
Oh, yeah. Sounds good across the board. All right, we'll move forward as such. Next up, Andy's gonna present the 24-25 AGR report. Andy.
So it looks a lot like last year, because I used the same colors and just changed the data. The thing that sticks out is you look at second grade, and we alluded to it a little bit last year, that class went in with a whole bunch of needs. And they started out in the reading with 45% high risk and 47% high risk, and we cut that in half to 23% of those kids are high risk. And I, just because I was curious, I pulled out last year's AGR report, and the same thing happened in second grade. Not the exact same numbers, but
Second grade, or that's happened to these kids in first
no,
grade?
it happened, the third graders in second grade started, they weren't as that high, it was like 35%.
But the Trend.
But by the end, they're 15. So something that we're doing in kindergarten and first grade, that when they hit the second grade, everything pays off. Because we're taking a whole bunch of kids that are really struggling and helping them out a lot. And part of that, part of that is the 2 second grade teachers we have do an extraordinary job. We also have Mrs. Von Ruden, we have Mrs. Solverson. There's a lot going into that, but it isn't somewhere. We're setting the right foundation in kindergarten and first grade to make that happen. Would I like to see it happen a little bit sooner? Yep. And I think with the changes we've made with U5 reading stuff that everybody's been trained in, I think you're going to see that really start to take off. And then with the math stuff, like I said before, I don't like to do a lot of things at the beginning. I'd rather do a couple of things right. We got the behaviors. The data shows that we really got that straightened out this year. Certainly going in the right direction. I feel like math, and we'll talk about the forward stuff next month or August, whenever we get to talk about the forward stuff. There's some really nice,
November.
maybe. There's some really good data there that shows that made a lot of kids, made a lot of progress. And I was in contact with the Lancaster Elementary School because on their forward results, their math stuff is in the 80% of their kids are meeting or exceeding. And we're gonna send a group of teachers down there, and he's gonna send some people up here, and we're gonna kind of deal with some of the stuff they're doing. Some of it we already are. I just think we can learn from them and do it a little bit better. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff on here that I think we're doing a really, really good job with. If you have any questions, I would happily try to answer them.
Mine is, who sets the Fastbridge performance objectives? Is that something we have control over, or is that a statewide number they put there?
Kim had them and I just followed what she said.
Oh, it seems like we absolutely achieved none of them, in spite of everybody's hard work and stuff. We achieved none of them, and I don't know if we've ever had a report where we actually achieved the objective.
And I think
I just gotta ask why you would keep it, why not look at this year's numbers and put a reasonable
well,
thing that you could actually say we did it. you
for
know,
me,
and
the 80th percentile, if we could get all of our kids at that point on the forward exam, it may be aspirational, but that's where I want 80% of our kids to score meeting or advanced on it.
Yeah.
And as long as we're making progress towards that, I'm okay with that. I get what you're saying, Jen. I don't necessarily disagree.
know,
but I don't
just
wanna-
thought maybe it was
yeah.
a state number they just put in there.
Well, I think there's a little bit, Kim, isn't there, with Fastbridge, that was part of the,
Fastbridge, that was their recommendation for.
so we stuck with.
Yeah, I would
what
have
we had.
second guessed either. I would have just taken it, because once you second guess it, then.
Better SLO.
Yeah, make them do anything.
But
they
it-
don't like about it.
Janet, if you look at first grade math, we're at 70% low risk. We're getting
I
pretty
saw
darn
that.
close.
Yep, yes, we are. I know that too.
That's one kid, Janet. That's one kid.
That was the only one. And that's the other thing we always keep in mind is one kid makes a huge
Yep.
Yeah.
thing. But, yeah, the next one down after that, that was 59, so the highest we got besides that was 59. So,
Generally, things move in the right direction, though, but if you look at second and third grade, they're pretty stagnant or even over the course of the year. On the behind what's, well, first, let me ask you,
be careful looking at the numbers too.
Andy, let me ask you, so you pointed out a case where things really improved what
That
was
was
it,
second grade.
second grade?
Second
And it
grade.
is.
Yeah, they cut in half.
Yeah, because 45% on high risk went down to 23.
So, yeah,
And 24% low went up to 40. So you want your low risk to go up and your high risk to come in. It's kind of hard to look at these if you don't know.
Yeah, to
you know.
really think through.
Yeah.
And third grade remembers that transition from learning to read to reading to learn.
I think Scott, so like kindergarten math went from 4% high risk to 22%.
Yes.
Yep, and that's, and Amy and I talked about that.
no, let me back up.
Okay,
We-
I'll
we
answer yours in a
spun off
second, Bo.
here. Where we're showing progress, why are we showing progress? Like in my mind, we've got effective teachers in the classroom. We've changed the curriculum, you're always talking about that, Andy, we're doing this new thing.
Yep.
And we've also invested in interventionists.
Yep.
Are all those kind
Without
of
a doubt.
coming together?
Yes, and the biggest thing with the curriculum, and I talked about this at our staff meeting, is we started that. We got trained in the middle of January, bless you, and we started that in the beginning of February. When you look at how many lessons people probably actually went through, it's hard to say we even got 50 lessons in. By the time you had field trips and everything, from the time we got started, it was really a quarter. And if you went around and you asked each kindergarten, first and second and third grade teacher what they think of you flying, is it going to make a difference? Yes. Are we stuck? Where I think it's going to make the biggest difference is in these kindergarten numbers. Because we're playing catch up with the second graders and the first graders because they didn't have that foundational phonics that they needed. My hope is that as they move forward, that next year's kindergartners, it's going to be more like 65% of them are low risk. And only 10 or 15% are high risk, because they're kind of, the other thing with the Act 20 is me doing the, what's the word I'm looking, the progress monitoring every week, is it's pretty easy to see which kids are making progress and which kids aren't. And I can tell you that every kid, even that is in the high risk in second grade, has made a ton of progress. Did they make enough progress to score 3 points higher on Fastbridge to get to get to a different thing? No, but I have it all. It's all on UFly. There's kids that started in January that were reading 14 words a minute that are reading 25, or not 20, some of them 25, but 45, 55, 65 words a minute. And that's happening because of everything that's happening in the classroom. The first grade, the kindergarten dropped because, and I went and asked Amy that, and this is where we're gonna get to that math part of it. But when she does, in kindergarten, the teachers ask them that, there's a jump in Fastbridge at the last quarter where the math is, they spend more time, the test asks them to add 10 plus 8, and our math curriculum doesn't do that yet. And like Amy said, she goes, they're not gonna do well on it because they haven't seen it.
Right, it gets harder.
So that's part of that, and I've gone around and I've asked more of those questions, like what happened here, what happened there. Yeah, it gets a little harder in second and third grade to make bigger jumps because they're farther along. I think we get more bang for our buck and we can make bigger changes in kindergarten and first grade. In the first grade, there's a group of kids in there that have struggled, and I've read with them every week. There's about 4 or 5 kids in the middle that I think are really close to taking off. And we've talked about one of them. We're gonna take off next year. So that number is going to drop because I've watched their progress monitoring from January till May. I've watched them improve. That is the one thing that I like about Act 20. I like the progress monitoring because that still gives me a chance to be with kids at least 1 or 2 days a week, and I get to read with them and I actually get to watch if it's going up or down. And it's gonna streamline how we do special ed because it's pretty easy after 12 or 14 or 18 weeks to say to Katie, we've tried different stuff and this kid is not getting any better. and then it's a learning disability. So that's forced us, and I said at the staff meeting, I only get nervous when I think things are going good. I feel really good about how things are going in the elementary. And that's not easy for me to say, because that's not my personality, as some people will know. I think it's really gonna pay off here in the next year, 2 years, but we're gonna see some really good results.
Well, kudos, you know.
Well,
we-
I wish they were better, but. I
Well,
like the way they're
so
going.
back to my original question, like, with those improvements in some of the grades, you look at like third grade reading. Began the year 11% high risk, end of the year 11% high risk. You know, what, on the flip side, what's the holdup there? Is it mostly behavioral issues?
No.
or is it-
It's kind of where they are, I think. And
A lot of
that's not a
times
great
it's-
answer.
Yeah, a lot of times it's in the automaticity because they're expected to have mastered, and then the speed of how fast they read or bubbles, you know. In third grade, it's reading to learn, but even in kindergarten, I know that we would assess that they know the material, but the speed at which they're producing it wasn't meeting the standards for the tests that we were giving.
Okay,
And the other thing, and Kim and I have talked about this, is Jim, who has helped us with some of our reading and behavior stuff from CISA. Jim wants to help look at some curriculum and make sure that we're focusing, like we did with to go to UFly to focus on foundational skills of reading. He wants to help us make sure that we're focusing on the most important part of our reading and our reading curriculum, to make sure that we're hitting those key skills, which we have. But it's like anything else, is our reading curriculum has everything you need to teach reading. Honing into what are the 2 or 3 most important things is really hard for teachers to do sometimes on their own. I've tried to help, but I think that's where Jim's experience is really gonna pay off. And that's when I talk, it's like talking to the guy from Lancaster, it's also the guy from Lancaster's brother-in-law. But Jim has helped them with their reading in Lancaster. And a couple of teachers have already asked me about, can we meet with Lancaster this summer for the math stuff? Because I know that our math curriculum, I've looked at everything, not everything, I've spent a lot of time looking at different stuff of how to get kids to understand math, not just follow the trick, but understand it, conceptualize it, so that they can problem solve as they go through. Our curriculum has everything it's supposed to have. They're supposed to play with numbers and, take 10s and break them 6 and 4. We do all of that, and there's still a piece missing where the kids don't get it and understand it. And Brad made a really good point. He goes, if your kids in 3rd grade aren't at grade level, you've just cut off different avenues of their life. Because if they're in 3rd grade and they're gonna struggle in math, they're probably gonna struggle in 4th grade, and they're gonna struggle in 5th grade, and they're never gonna take algebra 2. And if you're a farm kid who really likes animals, you're not gonna be a vet, because you can't pass algebra 2. So you're cutting off kids' chances for what they can do in life if you don't get them there in 3rd grade. Like I said, behaviors we got, I feel really good about the reading, and now the next part is let's get the math. And he does some stuff with some thinking classrooms that I taught in 5th grade that I use. And I think when we talk and listening to the staff, they see that that's the next part. And there's some schedule stuff we can do, but I think that's gonna be the difference. And when he said that, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Because you're cutting kids off if they're not at grade level at the end of 3rd grade.
Does that, and I'm sure it's handled in the classroom so that it doesn't, but does treating kids differently by providing an interventionist or extra homework or more time, does that in any way stigmatize them and impede their confidence in terms of?
I think it's the opposite, because when they go to Mrs. Von Runer, or they go to Tracy, and then they start to succeed, they have more confidence.
Okay,
Yeah, they're not, and nobody downstairs gives them extra work as a punishment because they don't understand what they're doing.
okay.
Yep. And they love coming to the office to read for me, so I don't think that's a bad part, because we screw around all the way down there, so. No, I don't, that's a good question, Scott, but it's not.
Yeah,
I think it only builds their confidence.
good.
Anything else?
Just a comment about when Kim was sitting in your chair, we talked about a graphical way of presenting. I don't know if you remember that. If you'd be interested, we're gonna talk about that relative age thing at some point. Maybe we could look at a way to present this to the board so it's graphical instead of tracking numbers left to right.
Yeah,
Do
we,
you
Just
remember?
an easier way to look at it. and
Yeah, so you can
understand the
look and say,
content.
boom,
Yeah.
that's going up, that's going
That's
down.
right.
yeah, we can.
Yeah.
And we can actually, there's some, we could follow the grades across too.
Yeah.
Cause like the third grade, you saw a big jump last year in the second grade.
And that standard isn't static, right? Like the assessment throughout the school year, the expectations to.
Yeah, they have to
Right?
score higher.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a moving.
Yeah, it's a
target,
moving,
so-
it's a moving goal.
Which makes it more challenging, the kids, I mean, you can really see improvements, but they're still not meeting expectations, cause the expectations are, that's especially challenging. And to show my ignorance, what the hell is CDMR?
I was gonna ask.
It's words per minute, it's words read per minute, so that's, it's like a timed 1 minute reading. So it's how fast, how fluently they can read in 1 minute.
And they have to read it aloud?
Yep, they read it aloud.
Because how else are you gonna know?
Yep, no, they read it aloud. So what's interesting is this is the Fastbridge CBMR, which is words per minute. For the Act 20, we have to use Ames Web. They're really, they're close, they're they are both supposed to be nationally normed. They're pretty close, but they're not exactly the same. So if we used Ames Web, would it make our data look a little better? Maybe, in some kids, some not. Just, anyway, we have, the only thing that the state looks for Act 20 is to see if they need a reading plan or not is the CBM in third grade, second grade, and first grade. So actually where it just says reading, they don't even look at that, or they don't care, which is not necessarily a great indicator either, because some kids read really fast and don't know what the hell they read.
Yeah.
But according to the state, they wouldn't need a reading plan. So that's why, and I've got a thing with the Forward and Ames Web and Fastbridge, and I'm putting all together to kind of see how they all relate to each other. And then I took the sub-test of the Forward to see if we can find gaps on our Forward test where, okay, we're not teaching this specific thing. And that's kind of a question for Jim too, when he comes and talks to me.
So at 1 minute, they read a lot. How do you handle that with a kid with an IEP who may need
Well,
just
according to
more
the state
time,
for
his
Act-
reading is fine, or, you know, he has a speech problem.
Well, for Act 20, there is no exception. They just read or don't read. So that I sit with, there's a young third grade girl that she read one word, she read I. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense for them to have to read it, but that's the way it's set up. For Act 20, for, like Aaron said, for the Forward, they have exceptions and there's stuff they can do. And same for Fastbridge a little bit.
Anything else, Andy?
No.
Very good, I always really like to see this stuff. Any other thoughts or comments? To me, this just encapsulates why we're here, right? I mean, behind each of those percentages are 20, 25 kids that are gonna be adults and have the potential to find in part by what happens here, so these are, I always think, really important reports. Thanks, Andy.
I'll speak to that as just a father thinking about my daughter, how she started, you know. And you think your kid's gonna be fine and everything until you start comparing them to other kids that are able to do all these things, you know. It's like, why can't my daughter read like them? You know, what did we mess up? And it's people like Andy and
But it's not me, she just reads.
I mean, people like Von Rudin, it's been extra time with them. It's such a big deal, and to be able to catch them up and just think that's awesome, because you look at the data, but I'm thinking about my daughter struggling and then trying to catch up the whole year, and now, you know, we have the subtitles on, we're watching TV and she's able to read. You know, it's just pretty awesome stuff, you know, so kudos to you guys, it's just awesome.
I will tell.
That's what education's all about.
It's really cool.
But I guess to that end, that's why I'd love to see when you start talking about tracking the kids across the years and stuff like that. I mean, to some point, like the numbers here, like they aren't telling a story, you know, in my mind. I think you're telling a story, which is a good story.
Right.
And, you know, I think having that kind of stuff to kind of see how they go year over year, if the purpose of the numbers is to show somebody else or that, you know, that, I think there's value in that, you know, at some point. I know you have other things to focus on, but that's what I'd love to just be able to kind of share your message kind of beyond the narrative.
Well, and this. The AGR thing is what we have to fill out for the state.
Yeah, I know.
And that, you know, and that's, I don't think it. That's kind of, and that's why I'm playing around with the forward exam and the age. Since we have to use Ames Web and we have to use Fastbridge and we have the forward, I would like to see how that, and I can, Aaron will want me to be quiet, but I'm gonna tell you this. There are 4 kids in the 3rd grade, who according to Fastbridge and Ames Web are all above the 65th percentile. And when they took the forward exam, they must not have cared because they both, all 4 of them scored as below meeting expectations. So on our state report card, we're gonna have, instead of whatever percentage is meeting or exceeding, we're gonna have 4 kids that are gonna drop our percentage. And 4 of them, there's no doubt, they've never flagged for anything, they've never been low at anything. They just got the state test and were like, either they didn't care. I'm serious. I mean, there's no way those 4 kids and all that goes into the data, which doesn't show. It sucks, cause those kids shouldn't be there.
But what we could do, Isaac, and we used to do this on the board report and it got a little bit confusing. You probably remember this, Jan. We used to put a category at the end that showed their scores the previous 2 years where they fit in. So maybe this year what we could do is we could actually pick each grade and show it from, so we take the 7th grade class and we could show their scores every year, proficiency, all the way up through. Would that be helpful? You know what I mean? Then you
I
can see
think
like.
that would tell your
But we
story.
can't do
Total
that, but we
snapshot.
only have 2 years now of forward.
That's true.
You only can go back 1 year now.
Yes. You're right.
Yeah.
So that would, because they changed it, but that essentially, if that were to be the
Yeah.
continuity, that's kind of what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do have the other one sitting in my room, if you wanna look at it afterwards, or you can look at last year's, you can slide them up, kind of see where they are.
No, we've talked about this before. I think it would be neat to look not at static numbers, but at individual scores and change. And compile that in a way that shows how students are improving across school years. I think we've talked about that a couple of times in the past. And it would be, well, we've only got 2. Is anybody, I assume, before they implemented this new test, they did some kind of standardization to show that the 2 are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ames Web is picked because it is nationally standardized, and we use Fastbridge because it's standard.
But those 2 tests, so 2 years ago, we switched from one to the other.
That's forward. Forward is also nationally normed. That's
Oh,
the
they
state of
just-
Wisconsin one,
Change the cut scores.
but they change the cut scores, so you can't compare past
You can't
last
compare,
year.
okay.
I know they're gonna change it.
Yeah, they talked about
I
it.
mean, I heard that.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
That's-
they're-
Wait till they
Just
don't
make
wanna
sure
show
that There'll be
this.
all these numbers, but you'll never really make sense out of them because it's the same, yeah.
But we've
I
got
don't
2 years of data to look at that. And I like Isaac, I'd be really curious to see. You know, on an individual student level, not that we report individual scores, but how things are changing one
Right.
year to the next.
Well, growth is motivating, and I think that's what you identify there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can tell you, after the last 4 months, today marks my 4th month. Every day, what was motivating was to identify the growth. And so I think that speaks volumes that you wanna see growth. And I think that's motivating for teachers too, because you do get stuck thinking, I'm not getting anywhere. And I mean, I could have done that, but you have to find something, there's growth. And that is what is motivating and makes you feel good, so.
And I think that's what I'm trying to say too, is like, it's less about the numbers, and even if they don't
Yeah.
match year over year, it's like.
You wanna feel the growth.
And it's not because I question that we're doing the right things, it's because I just, you know, I wanna make sure we're telling the best story to everybody else, that
Well-
this is what happened to you.
And I do question it all, cause I wanna know if the stuff we're doing is making a difference. You know,
Yeah,
seriously, that's just the way. I wanna see if, okay. Has this made a difference? And that's where the frustrating part for me is the fact that. I don't think the state test always shows exactly how much growth they made.
Yeah, fair.
You know, and even on the fast break days that some kids are just like, yeah, you know, and you can, there's a way to tell how long they spent on it. Got done in 6 minutes, that's your thing.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
But it does go back to a degree with what Andy said about when Jim said, if they're not here by third grade, we're cutting them short. I mean, with that, you're not gonna see a lot of, in first grade, they were incredibly low, and third grade, you know what I mean, they skyrocket. I mean, that, you'd see it a lot more in first through third,
Yep.
rather than from third on. So by the time they get to third, you're probably gonna see some changes, but it's not gonna be like a, you know what I mean, a crazy amount. And I think that's the part, going back to what he said, by the time they get to third grade, there is at least some level set of progress, and you can certainly improve, you can certainly not improve, but it makes it that much more difficult to
Thanks, Becky.
completely.
And that's why I hope that the stuff we're doing in kindergarten and first grade sets the foundation that
Right.
everybody at the end of third grade is at 80 is higher. Because then third grade isn't trying to catch people up. You're not trying to catch up in fourth
Right.
and fifth grade. You're where you're supposed to be.
So are we doing a new math curriculum then? Is that?
How long do you want to be here?
No,
He was
I-
trying to get no, I don't think so, because when Brad and I probably talked for 45 minutes, and in part of the conversation, I just said, I go, I'm gonna ask you what you're using, not because I wanna steal it, I just wanna know. And he goes, because the school was and there was an NPR article about him. Eric agreed to back, like, hey, you gotta call this guy, do you know him? And I'm like, actually, I do. Sherry sent it to me. I'm like, would you people leave me alone? I'm trying to plant corn. Anyhow, because he's Jim's brother-in-law, Jim had said, you guys need to talk. He said this way before, he thought we'd get along. And Brad said, he goes, I've had 4 other schools call me and I wouldn't tell them what I used. He goes, because it's not the curriculum. He told me what to use. He goes, they use math expressions. He goes, CISA sent out a thing what everybody's using. He said, I took everybody use math expressions, and there's 32 schools in 31. He goes, 3rd, 4th, and 5th were math expressions, 17, 16, and 30, 31, and 32. He goes, it doesn't matter. It's the people you have and how they're presenting it and what the steps they're taking to get it. They do some stuff I don't think we can do. They're big enough they can compartmentalize. I don't think we can do that, but I think we can use some of the steps that they're using to make what we have work better. So that's a roundabout way of, I don't think we need a curriculum. I think we need to just kind of change what we're doing.
People, not programs.
Yes.
Well, but how many years has it been since we went through that dramatic change in math curriculum from whatever it was called, Aurora math to, you remember
Like
that?
7?
Eureka math?
This is Eureka. It's at least, yeah,
At
because
least
we did
7 or
Saxon. It's been a while.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah.
Cause that was.
Could be 10, it seems
We
like
had
7.
lots of discussions
Yeah.
about
I
that.
remember coming down to one of the.
Yeah, when
meetings
we had the
with
meeting in the
parents.
auditorium. with
Yep.
parents and stuff, yeah. That's probably been
6 years, 5 years?
6 to 8, I would say, roughly.
All of that.
But you are confident the curriculum we're using has the stuff.
I think it's
so
gonna-
just a matter of figuring
Yeah, I mean,
out, yeah.
it's definitely been a lot more continuity to it with
Yes.
scores and not all over
Right,
the
Yep.
place.
Mhm.
And it
our
tries,
math scores have definitely
yep,
gone
gone
up,
up.
for sure.
Yeah, math scores look good. Generally.
But I think it's there, Janet. There's some tweaks I think we can make from an instructional standpoint that I think will make a difference.
So how do you motivate the kids to focus? I know this is an impossible question, so you get the best.
Candy, I offered ice cream. I did. I said, if everybody everybody whose fast bridge scores go up, I will bring you ice cream. I'm not mean enough, not. As long as they tried their hardest, everybody got a root beer float. I don't think it makes a difference. There are days when kids are gonna do their best but you gotta remember our population too. Did they get fed last night? What happened at home? Was mom, there's so much that goes into it.
Yeah.
That's where I get frustrated with the test scores sometimes.
And you mentioned Amy Was aware that scores were gonna change, or the students
No.
weren't gonna do as well because they hadn't even done that yet.
Right.
So
Just-
the date of the test is given a set statewide or something?
No, for this, we just pick it in. There's a fine line with the fast bridge. So you try to do it in the spring, but you start getting a little into May, you don't get a very good score either. You know what I mean? Cause the kids, my second, I did that one time in 5th grade. I gave my kids the one in May and I was just like, could have punched them all. So like, you guys didn't even try, but once you get to that middle of May, you're not getting good results anyway. Cause the musical started and
Yeah,
so you kind of got to do it. And then usually it's coming right off a state test and they're like, we just got done testing. It's like, yeah, well, I'd rather do better on the state test than the fast bridge one, but.
well, very good. One last comment and then I'll shut up on this. But, few years ago, Sarah Wallace, and I know she's high school, but her contract was 95% English, 5% reading specialist.
Yeah.
Is there any value in a reading specialist helping at the elementary level? I don't.
She has come down and she's done stuff down below. It's really hard for her with her time to be that, she doesn't have enough time to really go into it. And honestly, with Jim's input, he's really good. I mean, he's helped me see, and that's the next part is we wouldn't have made if I wouldn't have asked him for his help, we wouldn't have made the changes we made this year. We wouldn't have, we would have tried different stuff and I'd still be grasping at straws, but he gave us the tools to figure out where our biggest weakness was. And we've tried to fix that. And now our next one to try to help the scores, the next part is to make sure that we're getting, now that we have the foundation, is to make sure that everybody's hitting the right skills to go forward.
Yeah,
And what you only had for half of the year this year, you are going.
Yeah, we'll have you fly the whole way through. And remember, some of those 3rd graders, they started, if there's 100, let's say there's 100 U-Fly lessons, some of those 3rd graders started like on lesson 15 because they were missing the schwa sound and different blends, where the 1st graders were already doing that. You know, the 3rd grade, we're trying to backfill with some of those kids, the 2nd grade, and it paid off for the 2nd grade. And that's where I think, well, if the kindergartners get all 100 lessons and the 1st grade gets it, should work. He's helped
So the reading specialist thing, do we have to have a reading specialist?
legally, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because and if we aren't gonna do it on staff, I just asked because I remember looking through that DPI, the administrative part of the database. And everybody, all the districts I look at, there was always administrator and principals and psychologist, I think might have been there, I don't know. But reading specialist was always there. And in our CISA, 90, I don't know how much, most of the time, it was a Southwest Tech name.
Oh,
So you must be able to just, I don't remember seeing that as a line item, but there must be some.
what does that mean, the contract? with
Just
some-
means we contract with Southwest
Yeah.
Tech for it and you get whatever you need you're covered. You
Right.
have your,
Great.
yeah, and I'm sure they offer some kind of service. Interesting.
All right, this is my last question. Do you get the feeling these kids are, not to point at Kim again, but I remember when my older kids were young, there was a reading 20 minutes a day thing, which was a pain, by the way. Every night do your reading, but you know, they read every day. You get feeling kids now with cell phones and whatever are sitting with books and.
my hope is the little ones don't have cell phones yet, because that's my biggest fear. No, but that's on one of my list of things to do is try to come up with some, whether it's tape the principal to the wall or do something to try to have them read more.
Yeah.
But every teacher there has a thing. 1st grade is read 20 minutes. Everybody has something set up for their kids to read every day. So.
Are they are they checking books up from the library?
Yep.
Like, so they're taking books
Yeah,
home?
books.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Andy, again, this is really meaty stuff. Moving to something as meaty, 25-26 preliminary budget, Allison.
All right, my little caveat before I get going is that we don't have a lot of concrete numbers yet, so this is just our best projections with the knowledge that we have so far. And I know that this is going to change before we actually finalize it in October, and right now, there's just a lot of unknowns, but this is what we have with our best estimates and the knowledge that's out there for now. So starting at the top, we'll go through our general fund, and this is our Fund 10. This is our main fund that we use, that a lot of our stuff goes through. Going down through our revenues, so our transfers in Source 100. This is indirect revenue from our IDEA grant. We always budget this into the grant, and if we need it, it's there. In previous years, we haven't used it because we've had enough other expenses in IDEA that we don't need to transfer it into Fund 10. It's a grant that we get, it's a federal grant.
I've heard it for a long time, but I cannot tell you what that stands for.
Yeah, most of the time it's, I think actually all the time it's used for special education expenses.
Individual disabilities education.
Yeah.
And then moving down to local sources, which is Source 200. These are our tax levy dollars, so that's where a vast majority of that is coming in. There is a small amount, like whenever we have to host, whenever we get to, not have to, a WIAA regional event for any type of sport, that money goes in that Source 200 as well. But that's very, very small amounts compared to our tax levy dollars.
That is mostly our property tax, so the increase is $400,000 of new referendum.
Yeah.
Correct.
So $400,000 more coming out of our taxpayer pockets.
So thinking about that line at the annual meeting, we, the referendum passed with stepwise $400,000 increases. But part of our messaging was, we're not gonna levy if we don't need to, and then it was the first year we have to, but we may not, and now the second year we're having to. So there might be some messaging we need to
Well,
consider.
yeah, there's another reason we have to also, that even though we had, what company, Baird, is that, had that person here, did not explain to us how that how that
It
works.
builds our base.
That's what we learned at the school board convention that year. And then we weren't the only ones, because the Baird booth was very busy after. But anyway, we're gonna have to, we might as well just be upfront about it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
If we
'cause
don't
you-
levy the full amount one year, we could never levy any more than we did that year, that first year.
Yeah, you explained it nicely, so,
Yeah,
but
3 years,
still,
it
it's,
builds your base
Yep,
up.
and it must have built the base some, but
So,
it's just maybe a different path than some folks, whoever out there in our constituency is tracking this, they may remember the messaging and question it, so, but I think it's fully justified, it's just something.
it would have been, I don't know, silly not to. We would have been responsible if we didn't levy it.
I think that's the key word, responsible.
It's, I absolutely agree, but my
I
point
know,
is
really
that
convinced.
trying to get the votes for the referendum, we were suggesting that after that first year, we may not have to. when you're- Somebody might point at that and suggest that,
So Scott, I think the thing you have to look at is the next 4 lines that
Yes.
Alice is about to present, where our state and federal funding is decreasing from last year.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
So as much as that's increasing our tax base, we don't have a
we
choice.
still don't have enough, that's right.
That's not,
When you get down to the bottom, total revenue, even though we're gonna tax our taxpayers $400,000 more, we're only generating less than $220,000 of an increase. Because we're having to use that referendum money to make up for the losses that Isaac just pointed out.
That's correct. Unfortunately, we always hope it's different, but maybe we'll get some really good news, but I'm not
Yeah,
holding my breath
we
too
can
much on
hope,
it.
But as far as planning a budget, I think you're following everything I've heard at CSUN.
so regarding those 4 lines largely federal money. You're making some predictions here. How certain are those? Like, where are you getting that information?
A lot of it is through other business managers, Baird and CISA. Right now, all of the messaging I've gotten is to keep your grants at about where they are this year. The only preliminary grant information that we've gotten thus far is for Title I. And that one came in, I think this year we got $350,000. Next year it's coming in at $346 is the estimate that we've got. So $4,000 less approximately, but otherwise I haven't heard anything on any other grant. But I will keep on rolling if that's okay with everyone.
Yep.
So next on the list is the inter-district payment sources, 300 and 400. The vast majority of this is our open enrollment in revenue that we receive. Then going down to intermediate sources, source 500, this is just Carl Perkins. That's the only thing that goes in there is Carl Perkins. I have learned a little bit more on that. And with our Carl Perkins grant, since we get under, I think it's $10,000, we have to go into a consortium for it, so CISA 3 handles it. So I report everything to CISA 3, and when you're in a consortium, they also take a cut of the grant for administrative fees, but if it's under 10,000, we have no option but to go into it. So one day if we do end up getting more, then it would kind of be a twofold of getting an increase in grant, because we could handle it, or I could handle everything in-house and then not have to pay that overhead cost for it. Next on the list is state sources. So these are all of the state aids we get, the biggest chunk probably being our equalization aid, but it also includes like our high cost transportation. We have another SAGE grant in there. But yeah, most of it is just that equalization aid. Then going down our federal sources, so these are all of our title grants, and this one we're gonna see a very big decrease because last year we still had a little bit of ESSER funds, and this year we have $0. We had roughly $150 or $150,000 in ESSER funds that we spent between July 1st and September 30th, and that is officially done, wrapped up, no more ESSER. Then the last revenue for Fund 10 is all other sources. This is just some miscellaneous revenue. It's some insurance dividends that we get. If we were to sell a bus, that revenue would go into this source. So that brings our total revenue projection for next year to $8,108,543. Then looking down at expenditures, that first line item is for instruction function 100,000, and this is kind of just what it says. It says it is. It's all type of teacher expenses, salary, benefits, classroom supplies, everything incorporated into that. Then going down to support services function 200,000. This includes all administration costs, our bus drivers, our custodians, any office staff. School psychologists, that's all lumped into there. IT, that's also in there. Then going down to non-program transactions. This includes our open enrollment out payment that we make. It has vouchers if we ever, if a student ever were to take a college course and we would reimburse for that, that would come out of here as well, because there's a couple different places that they can go. So yes, the biggest piece of that is our open enrollment out payment that we make. And that brings us to a balanced budget of $8,108,543 in expenses for next year in Fund 10. Then moving down to the special projects fund, this includes Fund 21 and 20.
I'm sorry, can I?
Yeah.
So that budget, the expenses include what we'll talk about, those projected salaries.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, yep. Yes, moving back down to special projects, Fund 21 and Fund 27 are included in this. So Fund 21 is includes any gifts. Really, the biggest thing in here is our Griffin funds. We also run any scholarships through here. overall, our Fund 21 is relatively small that we account for revenue that we're really gonna get in. Fund 27 is the biggest piece of this, and that is our special education fund. Fund 27 has to be zeroed at the end of every year. This is where a big chunk of our Fund 10, and I should have mentioned this before, in our Fund 10 non-program transactions, this is also our Fund 10 to 27 transfer goes there. So that is a big chunk of that expenses in the special projects fund, is that Fund 10 to 27 transfer. Right now, with the information that I have, it is projected that we will have a Fund 27 transfer of $889,368, which is up from this year by $81,606.
$800,000. Last year, we transferred 600 and something told me, right?
Yes, last fiscal year, 600,000. This year was projected to be 807,762,000. Next year is the 889,000.
Almost 900.
Yes,
So
almost.
we could say, no, we can't, never mind.
Any word, we were talking about the biennial state budget, and Kim was talking about the minimal maybe increase to 40%, I think it was, in special ed reimbursement. Do we know where that's at in the legislature?
They're pushing for it. Everything I've heard is don't count on it. So when I've been doing my projections, it's still at what we're getting now. And actually right now, they say we should be getting close to like 30 or 33%. In actuality, it's coming in closer to 27% because of how they fund it. So, yeah, we can always hope for more, but yeah, everything I've heard is don't hold your breath that it's gonna jump up any, it's gonna kind of stay where it's at.
I think that budget hearing is tomorrow, so maybe some of that will be a little more concrete. I don't know.
I think they wanna go for more of the high cost instead of just the special ed.
Yeah,
Which is.
What is that?
Yeah.
Very cost.
High cost, what is that actual term?
so high cost for special education is any student that costs more than $30,000 every year. So then it would just be another form that we fill out to get extra reimbursement for them.
Would we have such students in a typical year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kids that go to Cooley.
So
We would, but ideally, I mean, it's to go for the
Yeah.
special ed increase, but
And actually, at the last conference that I was at, they did a whole presentation on the high cost special education system. And they were like, even if you don't think it's gonna make it, put it in there, because you never know, like there are things that come up, like little things that you don't think about, but it adds up. So that was my biggest piece of advice, is we just need to, every kid that we have, put them in this system and yeah, little things. And then that's another way for the people above us to know that, you know, there are a lot of kids out there that are either over that 30,000 or just about to that 30,000. And it's more of that message of, we need more funding, or another message
And what are they proposing they will do in those cases?
for high cost.
Yeah.
That's still up in the air right now.
Because right now they just be included in everything and we're supposed to get 30-some% and we're getting 20-some. So what are they saying? That if you have one of these cases, we're going to pay more per on that, we're gonna,
Yes, and I can't remember
but they're
the
not saying
exact,
how much.
I think that there is an exact percentage, but that is something that's being
30
discussed.
yeah, it's tomorrow, they're gonna talk more about it. This was just kind of
It would
some.
be nice if they just pegged it as an additional whatever on the other and then if it went up, instead of a second number and then it never changes.
So we track cost per student?
There is a program out there that, yes, you can, I think it's with WISE somewhere, so I need to do some digging, but yep, there's a program out there that you can add in a student with their WISE ID, and then you can tag like this person had a one-on-one para to help with their needs, and then you can tie that para's salary and benefits to that student, and then that would help with it.
But, and that kind of brings up some of the things that came up yesterday at our negotiations meeting too. We have to be careful that we are billing all costs that we can to special ed. So whatever percent of the psychologist time is spent on or with special ed kids or doing IEPs and stuff, that all has to be tracked so that, you know, even if we aren't gonna get paid more than the 20%, let's be able to justify, no, it's really 30%. You know, and I wonder what, I suppose it's gotta be out there on the DPI site somewhere. Our number of students that, you know, I don't know, definition of special ed, does that mean I have an IEP? I'm special ed. If I don't have an IEP, I'm not
Or a
special ed.
504 plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
So
Which is
if that's the
temporary.
definition, then is there somewhere out there, what percent of kids do we have that's in that category? Are we higher than normal?
I think we're like
I'd like to
17,
Yeah, there's.
I'm not sure
roughly.
though.
So we're spending $800,000
and I think we're less than,
17% of 500 kids.
I'd double check that, but it's right around.
17 times 5 is 5, maybe I'm low on.
That sound right? Am I
enrollment,
off on
but-
that? I think.
No, I think it's relatively
I
close.
think.
We're under 20.
Right around 17, but I think there are.
So when we have
numbers that
500
are higher.
kids, that'd only be 85 kids. We're spending $800,000 on 85 kids. There's.
I don't know if it's even 85 kids.
Well, I just roughly said.
No, yeah, I
500
know, I'm
kids,
just-
And he said 17%.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking
If
of how
it's
many are in the
even lower than
elementary,
that,
is
it's
30.
even more mind-boggling.
Yeah, no, it's,
Yeah, we can double check that percent.
She's pushing 80 in her.
That's what I
It should
thought.
show it right on our, is that what it is? Pretty close?
Yeah, because when I did the child count and stuff. it
Okay,
was
so that's
78, I
pretty
think she
close.
had-
What was
So I think she said 80,
80,
so.
Mhm.
more than I
Well,
thought.
then, I was closer than I thought.
Yeah.
You were good on your.
But yeah, I don't think I mean, just in looking through like other districts, when they have their report card, you know what I mean, and the free and reduced and whatever.
Yep.
We're not in the higher realm, I know that.
Mhm. And I did have a conversation with Katie earlier today, and she was going to look into some different programs for the students that would be a cost savings to us, but it's just making sure that whatever program they're in fits the needs. So she's looking and hoping she can find something that would reduce that a little bit.
Does she track her time? Like that's $10,000-ish per special ed student, but does she, if we're gonna identify students that are costing us more than $30,000. Is Katie tracking her time from 1:15 to 2 o'clock? I met with this student and that
It's-
dollar value of that portion of her salary goes to some spreadsheet so we can add
Yes,
up.
and we haven't had to get that.
No,
That
but
right
Janet
now.
did bring that up yesterday of what percentage we can actually bill. And I think like the 20% is, I just think that's like a standard number that we can do, but we were gonna check to find out if it's more. Could we actually bill more? But I think
And
that's a,
secretarial time.
think that's a
and, you know,
standard.
Everybody, you know, I don't know how you look for those kind of things.
Well, they
It's
must
something
have
to
some
allow.
plan if they're this, what is it called, high cost?
I got special education aid.
They must, if they're gonna reimburse schools at a higher rate for individual students that cost more than $30,000, they've gotta have some way to measure that.
So did they ever mention anything? That's high cost on individuals. Did they ever mention anything about overall cost for the school based on your enrollment or something and how much you're spending or how much you have to spend per student, even if it's not over 30,000?
That,
If you just spread it over your whole population, kind of like high cost transportation, or you know what it really sounds like, what it really starts to sound like is our insurance now that we're sort of self-insured. You have insurance for individual deductible, and individual goes over a certain amount. Well, then we don't have to pay that out of our pocket. That's our part of our sort of, you know, that group we pay to belong to covers that. And then there's also the umbrella that if your whole total among everybody you're insuring gets over a certain point, that kicks in. So, you know, you have like a $2 million stopgap thing, so you don't, you know. So if they were doing something like on both parts, maybe we could do it, but
Are you sure whatever they're planning in terms of this high cost reimbursement isn't school-wide? I just don't see how they can tabulate that per individual student. It just
oh, they can, each kid has this ID. Didn't know what the number was called. She said it. And we have not had to be that granular, right?
Wow.
To this point, but if they start doing that your kids have to be over 30,000.
Yeah, cause we'd have,
Then we have to start
what's his
doing that.
name upstairs, we had to hire the 84. Katie's going to see a incoming first grader who is in Chalita now. There's two kids that, not Chalita, but there's two kids that go to Cool, or three.
Yeah, they're getting, I don't know.
Yeah,
I can
it
see
would-
them
it-
a
there'd
lot
be more
of
kids than
trouble.
you
My goodness.
For those kids, it's easy, right?
We send it to
Yeah,
We get a
I would
bill.
guess if they did anything, they'll just, what is it, 27% right now? Do we get reimbursed? They'll probably up to 30.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
Say
know.
32.
I would guess it would be something like that.
I wouldn't worry about it until they actually have.
We'll find out
So
more
up to
tomorrow,
3%.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, who knows what they'll do, but I would guess they just do a percentage overall.
Clerical piece time.
But maybe
It's
not.
gonna take, and some of that it's gonna take away, especially in a small school, from psychologists or some of those people being able to actually do their job with the kid and having to be, oh, I can have hour with them.
Tracking their time, yeah, this is, yeah,
I don't,
it's a little bit maddening.
well,
Yeah.
we're not the only ones, but I mean, I understand.
So there's a meeting tomorrow, legislature, education committee, whoever's, is WSB or anybody sending lobbyists to pound fists on the podium and say.
I think so.
Yeah,
Sounded like
WSB
it.
is.
See,
Yeah,
Sounded like that
WSB's
was
been
gonna
sending
be,
emails to.
part of that was contact your legislators and
yeah,
everything, so.
There's some
Right.
great lobby that just happened. I know I saw an article about that this morning on that. They were going through all the different costs for schools for special ed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, I can find the article and share it with y'all. It was interesting. I mean, it's all the same stuff.
So it does sound interesting.
yeah.
Anything else?
That's all I have on Fund 27 really is, at the end of the year has to balance, and next year I haven't heard that it's gonna look any better, but we can always.
Well, and the other thing then at the top of your budget, you still have us not touching our fund balance this year. If we have to do the $800,000 transfer, I mean, it was gonna, in April, that thing's up pretty bad. So are there enough areas in there that we're not gonna have to touch our fund balance to find $800,000 to transfer?
Yep, that was originally budgeted this year, was the transfer of $800,000 for this current fiscal year.
But we never actually see that in the budget.
And this in our projected preliminary, no. Next month, we'll have the preliminary budget
This kind of thing, does it ever show up in?
not in that one, that's just our quarterly budget, but in the preliminary budget that you get next meeting, that will hopefully have a little more, we should have more information on. That will have a separate line item on of, this is your transfer for Fund 27.
And that was shown last year at the annual meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember that number, so it's not a deviation from what the expectation was.
so with that projected transfer next year, you're confident that we'll be able to balance this budget?
Yep, I put it in as a balanced budget, so I included that almost $890,000 as an expense in our Fund 10 to cover the Fund 27.
We're gonna be able to pay for gas and teachers and,
So far, yes, everything that, all of the knowns that I have, but again, there's a lot of unknowns, and realistically, we're not gonna know, I won't know for sure until October 15th as to what money we're for sure getting for equalization aid, which is our biggest aid payment. And
We know
even
what the-
along those lines with the open enrollment and stuff like that, we won't know that more in our for sure student count until September, for the third Friday count, so there really is just a lot of unknowns, this is just a best guess at the moment.
the one kind of known would be preschool. And you know, how many students screened?
Yeah, Marlo's got it.
27.
Yeah.
27?
There might be a couple more this year.
Yeah, there's been, I mean, I have something, there's a number of people that have contacted because they missed the deadline to do open enrollment. Right now, just from my guess projected and plus adding, we had 8 people or 8 students who I was contacted inquiring about the alternative open enrollment that starts July 1st. So we're looking at 465, so we're about what we were this year. But who knows who's gonna leave or if we'll get more, but that's kind of where we're at.
Could I ask? I'm gonna ask for 2 little bits of information next month or whatever, I mean, no big rush, but a year ago or a couple of years ago, we looked at from pre-K through 12 class sizes. And then projected total enrollment, 5 years into the future, whatever, you remember that? And just making an assumption that we stick with 27 for the next 4 years. But we're gonna be losing some larger classes, 40s, like Chloe's gonna be a junior, there's 48, I think, 50 in her class. Anyway, it would be really informative, especially when we start talking about state revenues, to see what enrollment's gonna look like over the next few years, and we could get a pretty good grasp of that. Sure. When we look at those. And then the second thing, I'd really like to understand the special ed budget and higher resolution, like this is really informative, but what's the cost? When we look at that special ed budget, can we break it down into staff?
Yep, and that'll actually be a little more of the preliminary budget next month as well,
Okay.
but I can make sure that I have it detailed at that level.
It's pretty clear, that's a big part of what we're gonna have to pay for going forward. Oh, boom, that was quick, Brian.
But you want it for 5 years? You want like projected out?
I think we're supposed to be like 430 on the 2-year projection.
Yeah, I'm thinking, this is exactly the data you need, but then you can sum these. As you see, the grade 12 graduate 41 students and 27 come in next year. And then the next year, 48 students graduate and 27 come in. So you could just plot total enrollment. And just looking at this, we're gonna lose 41, 48, 32, 35, and 25. All those numbers, except the last, are greater than our current pre-K enrollment, so we're gonna lose,
Aaron made a good point.
There's actually a chart, I can actually run up and get it, that we ran 3 years ago that would show, and if I remember off the top of my head, this coming year, we were supposed to be at like 420 or 425. Starting 27, 28, we were going on to 400 kids.
Yep.
And I'm just, I could get it to actually show you, but it was 3 years ago. And I know this year we were like supposed to be 420 kids. And we are still staying like exactly where we were when we ran it 3
Open
years ago.
enrollment's still increasing for us, open enrollment in.
that's
It's
the
still going
other
up. Yep.
variable,
So that could change, but
Yeah, but that projection is, it just doesn't help us.
it's definitely been a lot more positive than what it looked like 3 years ago and where we're supposed to be.
Doesn't help us. What do you mean?
Well, I'm saying like, guessing that in the next 5 years as a decrease, doesn't really help us make decisions today, though, I mean. Right?
Well, I think it does. I mean, if we're expecting over 3 to 4 years to lose 60 students, then the finance committee can start to think about where we make up that money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
We added a staff member for next year. Now, at what point are we gonna have to go the other way? I mean, it's like, just even the two top ones, we are gonna lose 41, 48. We got right now 27, 32 just on the bottom end, and I don't know what the other things we have to be it doesn't always it translates to, we're gonna have to do some things looking at those numbers, but also keep in mind, open enrollment is great, but at some point here, it's gonna come down to population. We have all these kids, they're not ours, and when those calculations start with your population, your population, then you get to add in your open enrollments, open enrolled in, then and subtract your open enrolled out. But that basic number that and maybe I'm wrong, tell me if I'm wrong, I hope I'm wrong. If that per student aid that they debate about every budget time, that's just on your students, right?
Yep, so our revenue limit is based off of our district residents. And then our open enrollment in and out revenues and expenses are a separate area.
Right.
Yep.
And the state sets that amount, and I'm not sure how, if they've got it percentage of, the regular, because we don't get the full amount of aid for those open enrolled in. We get a good chunk of it, but we don't get 100%.
Yes, and that is partially because most school, like, the per pupil revenue amount at every school is not the same. Some are at the low revenue ceiling and others are,
Right, much higher
$5,000
based
more.
on all kinds of things.
so I think that they take all of that into consideration to figure out what that amount will be.
Right, but bottom line, that state per student aid that they, like I say, argue about every time there's a budget bill, every 2 years, I guess it is our population. Now, if you just project way out and say, we have no kids here, we aren't gonna exist. I mean, so we also really just need our population. You know, what's happening, are we gonna, it's great to be able to bring in, but can you run a school with only 20% your own kids and relying on open enrollment for 80%? What was our percent of open enrollment in last year? I don't know, I know our numbers are good.
22, 23.
We looked
Yeah.
at that.
Cause it was
I mean,
120.
that's growing,
Yeah.
it's gone from, yeah.
If it could
Is-
stay somewhere in that neighborhood, we've already shown we're okay with it, but how low can we go?
As I recall that discussion, two things saved us and kept us from getting to that really low enrollment Aaron talked about. Pre-K bounced a little bit, as did open enrollment for 4 or 5 years. Our net open enrollment was heading downward.
And now
In the last couple of
Yeah.
years, it's bounced back,
Since
so,
COVID, it has come up.
but, in terms of Isaac's comment, I know what you're saying, like we got decisions to make now, that's down the road, but I think it's nice to be proactive instead of reactive, at least have some understanding of where budgetarily we're gonna be down the road. And if we look at, if we do that trend, it's pretty easy math, looking at current per pupil state payments, we can actually sort of predict what that budget hit will be, right? I find that stuff pretty informative.
I got a quick question, so, with the addition of another teacher, we've been losing a room, right? So did we do the 3K in the spring? Is that what it was?
We did it all.
That program.
We've been having discussions
Okay.
and
If we do anything, we'll have to slide it in the Sarah's room and the,
Yeah.
be creative.
We don't have a
People
room.
use that,
Yeah.
it's such a great
Yeah.
attention tool.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do we use this room for on a daily basis?
Counselors,
oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
counseling.
yeah, a lot of, at least twice a week.
So, yeah, we have 2 classrooms, so, yeah.
Alrighty, well, I will keep rolling and we can move on to the debt service fund. So this is funds 38 and 39. These includes all of our referendum debt and non-referendum debt. Fund 38 is our energy efficiency bonds, and those will be paid off in fiscal year 2028-29. And Fund 39 is our pool loan, which will be paid off in 2027-28. So the end is near with those couple of payments, and really what that is just a taxpayer relief coming when that happens.
What that says to those of you who will still be on the board then, that's when you have to do your next referendum. We're gonna have to find a way to get by till then. Because then when the pool goes, when those things are gone, that's when you do a referendum, because you can keep taxes, instead of jumping this side, it's only gonna have like that much effect because debt's coming off. So 27, 28, 28, 29. So we might be working out all right, because what is this? I'm just going right.
25, 26.
Is coming up. 26, 27, 27, 28, and after that, that 400,000 is gone. No, it's not. We still have that amount,
It stays.
but we're still
But if you need
probably
more-
gonna need something. I mean, everybody who does non-return, or does return referendums thinks I'm settled for good, because you can start to see we're not. Considering that almost half of it
Fails
is
on the
going to
family.
pay other things that we didn't really
it fails, it'll be fail.
just make up for other sources that aren't there, so. I should take that. Yeah.
Any more to wrap up?
That's all I have for the debt service fund, and then moving down to capital projects fund, this is Fund 46. So this is money that we can set aside for whenever we have a capital project. To my knowledge, we don't have any that will need to be addressed in the 25-26 fiscal year, but we do know that within, I think 5 years was the last number I heard, we'll need a new roof. So that money can be used to help pay for that
New roof or a new
section of roof.
section, right?
Yes, not a full roof, just
But
there's
we
one
had to
section.
have, when we started Fund 46, and we're still supposed to have it, there's supposed to be a plan. I don't know, you remember that, Earl, there's supposed to be.
You gotta have a, when you establish it, you gotta have a reason for it.
And you
be
can change
useful,
it
but you
whenever,
can change
but-
it, but you have to have a reason. That's why. the
So
roof
that should
got put in.
probably be found and reviewed at some point, 'cause-
Well, and it's something that as the building and ground, we started building out again, and then I think with staff turnover here, it's been on
Yeah,
hold, so we'll.
okay.
Yeah.
That's something we
Just so it's
should
something on
get back
the radar.
into, you know,
Yes,
maybe even looking at next year, trying to get ahead of some of that.
And we may have to be using more of that too, as things take,
Any other big? Yeah, the roof replacement, big expenses building wise coming up.
really not, we were looking at those cement steps down there, previously, having some cracks and stuff, but otherwise,
So it's the
You're
roof.
I think there's some talk about just like general painting and maintenance that was kind of larger numbers and chunks of that need to happen over time.
Like tuck point stuff, kind of.
Oh, yeah.
That was another one.
Definitely.
So I mean, I still have all those kind of rough spreadsheets. I was trying to get that in the organization that we could actually look at and have kind of a running number. So we'll put on the agenda.
we
for
can
one of our-
revisit that, yeah.
And priority.
Any other questions for Allison? I like it when numbers balance. From this point of view, it looks like it balances.
All right, so number one, food service, which is 150.
I don't know if it's on the packet.
It's not, yeah, I thought
It's on the page, no. I happen to have printed those 2 pages, so I have.
I trust.
It's not on the back.
No, I will.
no,
A few times when I was printing stuff.
Wait a minute then, unless anyone has any questions,
There's only 2 funds left on the top of that, and that's the
Yeah.
food service and community service. which-
and I will say both of those 2 funds, I budgeted worst case scenarios. I am not predicting the fund balance to get as low as what it's saying on here,
Yeah,
but I'm just waiting for the end of the year to come, so I can actually get a for sure ending balance for this year, to know what it'll be starting for next year. So yeah, Fund 50, it's showing that we're gonna be very close to breaking or needing to transfer money, because Fund 50, like 27, can't be negative at the end of the year. You can have a positive balance, but not negative.
how can they have lost this year? If you're showing their fund balance going down from 125,000 to 58,000,
So
how could they have lost that much money?
So part of it was, we can only have a certain amount of a fund balance.
I know we were supposed to work it down, but how could they have lost that much in 1 year?
We did buy some upgraded equipment. We had the blast chiller. What else did
I
we
don't
buy in
remember
there?
buying as much this year as we have other years.
No, that was the blast gel, and there was a couple other things.
Yeah,
We put a bunch of things into the
Yeah.
in the budget.
yeah, just, and those were more.
Okay, so that would be, you can look at that on their detailed line things and find out if you take that stuff out, how did they do? Because we had somebody new there this year. We gotta make sure meaning, people that supervise her have to make sure that they're breaking, if you take those special items, big items out that we used to pay for out of the general fund when we didn't have much of a fund balance. But they've got to at least be able to cover, the salaries and the food and the normal stuff. And it should be pretty easy, right? Because inside that fund, you're gonna have salaries and wages and capital equipment and I don't know enough about accounting to list that.
When you look at that, yes, it is closer to a break even. When I budgeted this, just in case, because I don't want any big surprises, I did budget like, oh, we maybe won't get as much revenue, so I kind of decreased that and then increase expenses maybe more than what I truly think they will be, just because I don't want any crazy big surprises.
And I'm
I'd
with you on that, I
rather
budget that way too, we're, you know, let's put expenses a little more than we anticipate, and let's not anticipate as much revenue. But if that's anywhere close to going from 124,000 at the beginning of this year to 9,000 at the end of next year, that's, there, at that point, the next year after that, we're gonna be taken from the general fund to make that break even too. On
And
top of the $1.5 million it's gonna take for special ed then.
Another option is always to increase our lunch cost. That would be another way to increase revenue, and that's something that I think that was decided at the last meeting, we kept lunch and breakfast prices the same. So that would be an option next year, is to increase that, just to help increase that revenue.
Are we, that's a good point, because as far as I can remember, every year we keep them, recently anyway, we've kept them the same, but if you go to Quick Trip, things are doubling.
But that was partly why it was kept, the price was kept the same, because they had such a large thing, so a large.
Are we
fund
seeing
balance.
the costs of our food? I assume
But
it's going
9,000
way up.
seems like you've taken it down too far.
Food costs have gone up. I think Heather's doing a great job with trying to keep it as consistent as possible. She's done a lot of really good things in there this year, and
Yeah.
I can't say this for sure, but everything I've heard is we've had more kids eating this year than we have in the past. Just,
And when I was on the interview group for her too, she was familiar with some software that Tina had not been using too, that tracked a lot of the stuff. So she probably has had better information throughout
Right.
the year than anybody had before,
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Anyway, just the concern that it's, yeah, it was supposed to be held, worked down, but I didn't expect it was gonna go in 2 years, so.
Mhm.
I don't think 9,000 is, I don't think it had to go that low, but there must be some documentation in what's appropriate, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah. And I can look into what their recommendation is at DPI as to what we should keep it at, but.
That would be good,
Mhm.
probably some percent of something, but
All right, I will move on to Fund 80 then, so that's another one, it's a worst case scenario, I can say I looked at the community service fund this morning just to see how we were coming in this year, and we are showing a $3,000 surplus. So knowing that, our beginning balance next year is going to be higher than what it is. Our revenues for it, and all of our revenues for this is all just pool fees, whether it's out of district water aerobics, swimming lessons. That has been higher than what we thought every year. I know last year doing the budget, it was like, oh, the newness is gonna wear off. It's, we're not gonna have as much revenue, and they really held their own on it. So I'm very pleased with that, and with this one, again, I probably budgeted less in revenues than I could have, just for that worst case scenario. The expenditures in this is, our pool supervisor pay, very few supplies go into it, and then, yep, there's some lifeguard pay out of it, and we also, send money to support the track club every year, and I think that's $1,000 that we send every year. But yeah, my projection is that ending fund balance in Fund 80 next year is gonna be a few $1,000s more than what it's showing right now. But this is just worst case scenario. And once we get all of our expenses in for the end of the year, then I'll have a better idea of this is what we actually did this year. And then I can go through and adjust, so it's more accurate than what this is showing.
FYI, for anybody that isn't aware, that Fund 80 community service is not under the revenue cap, that could get to levy taxes on separately and above.
Yes, so if the fund balance does start to get really low, this is something that we could do that additional levy for. Just to.
But yeah, but you have, it only has to, you can only cover things that are actually.
Correct.
But schools that actually like have it. big pool program and all kinds of things. And who knows?
Daycares,
Pardon,
Daycare.
daycares, yes.
Veroca's got theirs funded, you don't think?
I think so, yeah.
Just popped to mind, where's the Newsom, or not Newsom, the Griffin funding in this whole?
So that was in that second section, special projects fund. It's part of fund, that section is Fund 21 and Fund 27, so Griffin is lumped in with that. All right, then moving down the list, the package and cooperative program fund, that's not something that we currently use and we haven't used it in the time that I've been here. It's just another fund out there. Then going to the bottom of the page, looking at that total school levy projection for next year, it's an increase of 15.96%. I did dig back through when we were running the referendum, and we projected that our total tax levy would actually be $400,000 more than what I'm showing right here. And it would have been like a 25% increase from last year, or from this year to next year.
Outstanding as usual, thanks,
Yeah.
Allison. I'm
Good
about,
job.
No problem. And
mentally, I'm about numbered out, yeah. Any other budget related questions? We have lots of budget discussions, of course, coming up. Well, moving on then. Superintendent's report. And Kim is here to give it.
Yeah. I don't really have much of a report. I kind of what I've been doing, what I continue to do for June and July until I start full-time in August is to kind of build myself back and build my knowledge back. And I'm attending the meetings, all the meetings that I can online, and talking to staff. So that's kind of where I'm at. Just trying to, I've tried to make kind of the big moments for students and be as present as I can while still being true to my recovery and not getting set back, but gradually I'm trying to get back at it and attend meetings, and it's all initially like super overwhelming. So just trying to take it in pieces and build myself back. And I appreciate the staff like beyond and all of you. So obviously I did not want to go through this, but when you do, it really helps to be surrounded by the right people, and I definitely have been, so thank you. So no really real report, I'm sorry.
Continue to improve.
Trust me. Not much, said goodbye to some really good staff members, Ashlyn and Jenna and Trace. Talked to Katie today, we're gonna post for Tanya's para job. Probably do interviews like the first week of July, because be done with second cut pay, and I will be back from seeing my son in Nebraska. We had a good end of the year, and we have the most numbers that I've ever had for summer school. So that will be starting on July 7th, 8th, whatever that Monday is, but that's kind of it.
All right, just another shout out again to State Track. I think if you look at the number of kids and the events, and it certainly was without a doubt, I think probably the best athletic accomplishment day in Kickapoo High School history, without a doubt. So pretty awesome. I think with that though, just the effort that's gone in from the coaches and kids to be in the weight room on 3 days a week at 6 o'clock, lifting before school, all the extras, which is great. So just again, just a big shout out to all the kids and the staff and everybody to have that great accomplishment. Scheduling stuff for next year. We talked about that. Hopefully everybody got that to see the schedule for next year, numbers where things are at. Everything really pretty consistent. The only, oh shoot, is that not there, Rob?
I bet that didn't print either.
It's not.
It's not.
It just ended a little
Just,
early.
yeah, well, I had.
I didn't know how soon you'd done it, because I know that got
Do you
added.
go- I got it here if you want to copy it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to run and copy it, Marlo?
Oh,
Hey,
I'm
I'll
sure
explain it. So, sorry, I thought you guys said that.
Actually, Marla should
Um,
know anyway.
I didn't notice it till during the meeting, so.
As far as really anything different or changes, numbers pretty consistent, you know, there's a couple classes and just understand. You know, with some of the lower level math with kids who can't necessarily be in upper level math courses or whatever, some of those courses are a bit smaller. One of the changes that we have not had in a while and we're going to try is that this is the first year. Since probably, I think 2012 to 13, that we've had enough kids to do sixth grade band as a whole class as an hour. Greg has wanted that for a long time. It's just been really difficult to make in the schedule because trying to keep a split doesn't really work. Go ahead, Janet, you got a thought?
No, it just occurred to me, where is sixth grade? Is that middle school or not?
Yeah, yeah.
So then, why just sixth? Why not 6, 7, 8?
So the issue that
Learn how to play.
has always been
I
the
thought they
concern
started-
is that
I thought they started earlier.
when the sixth graders come in,
Okay,
they cannot play with the
Never
seventh and
mind.
eighth graders. So
never
So
mind,
this-
I've heard
yes.
of that first concert.
So this would give, so sixth grade band would actually have a dedicated hour each day to work. So we're gonna try that. I think as long as the numbers are consistent, it should work okay because we can have a split on the back end. The other thing that we're gonna look at and try, is eighth hour, with a block with, Mrs. Martin and Mrs. Walter. We're going to try to every other day incorporate Mr. Peterson with the leadership class with those kids. I think as we look at just kids coming through and where things are at and their understanding of the world as a whole and everything within it, the continuation to work within that will be good. On the back end, that will allow those teachers to focus on some more specific things on the off days, work with some kids individually in groups. So not a huge change. Again, we're gonna try it to see how it goes, but just trying to incorporate that in to do the best we can with the schedule and all the kids and meeting all the specific needs. So other than that, I'll let you take a couple minutes to look through the numbers and the classes.
You send me the colored one of this.
Sorry, I didn't get it. Can I send you the colored one?
So I can do that.
I'll let you borrow
Yes, I
mine.
can do that.
You can borrow mine for now.
That might work.
If it's actually online in the packet.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so you guys did actually,
I
okay,
saw it.
okay. Other than that, I wouldn't say there's anything,
So is sixth grade in here too then?
yeah,
I see
so,
7 and 8, but I.
so right,
Yeah, there's the English, I see.
yep, so right now, the change would be, instead of Mr. Smith having a study hall with those sixth graders, 6th hour, he'll have band. Which in some ways helps with another, because we have a lot of kids who if they're sixth graders, they have study hall 5th hour, and then they have study hall 6th hour. And so there becomes an element of
Yeah,
what's happening and what they're doing and trying to find some other things that are productive for them to work on. So I'm really hopeful that this will work out to be a good fit, and it's something that we can continue to do and will be best for the kids overall. There will be some tweaks as we go. There's always some schedule changes and things. And this is always a constant changing and shifting in each hour and what you can change, and you get some lower numbers in a class and then you have to change it to a different class and shift some of those kids to make things work. But again, there will still be a few tweaks, but you know, this is where we are at this point in time, and it's pretty solid. So.
Yeah, this is a lot. This is
well, yeah.
This has gotta be a
there's a few
Herculean
spots
effort.
when you.
the,
the
just
schedule
one
gets
question,
out.
I don't understand the schedule enough to have any real input, but if a kid wants to take a class, are they ever told it's full? Like, or is it, I don't see.
No, not really ever.
So
We've
then-
had some with the upper level English courses where if they haven't met the criteria or something, but not like, okay, it's full. No, I don't remember anything in a long, that I can
So the
remember.
kids are able to take the
Yeah,
classes.
yeah, there's definitely,
Not quite like when they get to college and find out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You couldn't switch others prep to 5B.
let's talk about this later. Probably not a good time.
Is that it, Aaron? Any,
No, that's it, basically, yep.
okay then. I just say it was 7.
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion that we move into closed session pursuant to state statute 19.85, part 1, paragraph C, considering employment, promotion, blah, blah, blah. Purposes tonight, summer softball helper for T-ball and 8 and under softball. Summer volleyball camp coaches,
No,
school
11:28.
psychologist contract, teacher salary scale, including
Don't worry about it.
teachers
I'll
with
figure it out.
extended
Alright, we can look
contracts,
at it, yeah.
administrator compensation, compensation for employees with individual contracts, staff projections, comparisons, and employee
And I don't remember.
longevity pay.
I'll move.
They have
And
prep,
I'll second.
they don't have studies.
Motion by Earl, second by Janet, to move into closed session, we'll do a roll call. And this one,
Isaac Wallace,
Yes.
Bo Schrader,
Yes.
Janet Mathis,
Yes.
Earl Wallace,
Yes.
Scott Wolf.
yes.
Extra class makes life harder.
Just had the numbers in there.
We're in closed session.
I don't read.
I probably never. Alright, we are in open session, Earl, you wanna?
Motion to approve summer helper for T-ball net. Jeremy Aaron,
Done right, no.
how do you pronounce it?
Yep.
I'll second.
And suppose, no, it's separate, yeah.
Alright.
Do recall.
And summer volleyball camp coach is David Shul and Sarah Miller.
Still second.
Motion by Earl, second by Isaac, to approve those individuals, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Make a motion that we approve the school psychologist contract as presented to us.
I'll second.
Motion by Earl, second by Isaac, all in favor? Aye.
To take and make a motion to approve the teacher's salary scale with the steps in that as presented to us.
I'll second that.
Motion by Earl, second by Janet, to approve the teacher scale for the coming year.
Roll call, listen.
Yeah, let's roll call that, Marla, thanks.
Earl Wallace,
Yes.
Isaac Wallace,
Yes.
Janet Mathis,
Yes.
and the other two abstain.
Yes. Yes, I abstain.
Yep, I am too.
Well, if you need to, by this time, be a good idea.
Yes, good idea.
Let's see, where we're into administrative contract, we'll make motion to approve the administrator's compensation as presented to us.
I'll second.
Motion by Earl, second by Isaac, to approve the administrator contracts. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Make a compensation for employee with individual contract, make a motion to approve contract as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Earl, second by Isaac. All in favor? Aye.
Motion adjourned. That's it, right?
That is it. Motion by Isaac to adjourn, is there a second? Second by Bo, we are adjourned, thank you, everybody.
Marla, do you want these back?
Yeah, I want the,
I think they lost.
yeah, close that.
Motion read, I'm not sure the administrators know for sure what we approved. Possible down there. I think the elections, yeah, but that's-
Uh,
I mean, they left the